Well, welcome back. It is time for part 2, and we are going to introduce you to the vice president, which we have previously introduced, because these two partners work in tandem. They work together, but they have their clear areas of dominion, let's call it, for the time being. And I want to introduce to you a gentleman on our left once I bring them back into the studio. Welcome back, gentlemen. John on the right, we just heard from him earlier, working with law enforcement to mitigate the terrorist threat here in our country. On the left, you will find Chris Gobbets, and Chris has an interesting area that he works in. It is not what you might initially think. It's more cultural. Chris, I don't want to steal your thunder. Tell us your role in tandem with John, as well as what you do apart separately from that with understanding the threat.
Sure. So John comes at this with a law enforcement background, having served with the FBI and the Department of Defense training within the government on the jihadi threat. I come at this from a different angle because I actually went undercover with Hamas doing business as CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. So when I come at this for training, whether it's law enforcement with John or whether we're training pastors on this threat, we have unique experiences, but at the end of the day, the information and the threat is the same. We just are able to explain the threat to law enforcement or pastors coming back from our different experiences and backgrounds.
Chris, I have done quite a bit of work with pastors, and I tell you, it's hard enough getting into a church on a topic that is germane to everyday church programming. As soon as I start talking politics, they run like cockroaches when you turn the lights off. How on earth, or you turn the lights on, how on earth are you able to find and recruit pastors to invite you in to talk about a very sensitive topic and highly politicized topic? How do they do it? How do you do it?
Well, first off, that's part of the problem right there is that we have way too many pastors that don't want to talk about anything, whether it's politics or whether it's this specific threat here, jihad. The problem with that is we won't win this war without pastors. You know, John and I have argued at understanding the threat that if we had 10% of pastors out there speaking truth to their congregation every single Sunday, that we would have already solved the jihadi problem. The problem is we only have a handful, as it is right now, all across the country, that are able and willing to speak up on this issue.
Well, those that don't open the doors, what is their typical, for lack of a better word, excuse? I think I know what you're about to say because I hear it often. Why do they resist you coming in or even going on this topic?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. You know, they're 501c3, they're nonprofit. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the big one right there. I've searched the scriptures. I can't see any justification for that anywhere. The bottom line is we are to speak truth, regardless of how we are persecuted, regardless of what happens. We are to speak the truth. And if we had pastors speaking truth about jihad and Islam, then their congregations would therefore support sheriffs when they actually start dismantling the jihadi network. And as John said earlier, when we train law enforcement in different cities all over the country, it's a coalition of organizations that oppose this training. You have jihadi groups, you have hard left groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center, and then you have a interfaith groups, Christian and Jewish groups that were working with the jihadis and the hard left groups to try to get our training shut down. So if we have strong pastors in a community standing up and speaking boldly, truthfully, in love, then it makes our job a lot easier in training law enforcement and protecting the community.
What seems to me, just a casual observation, and apparently many of the churches, and we will get to the ones that say yes and what you do there in a minute, but it seems to me that if you look at the history of the civil rights movement, much of that movement gained its momentum where?
In the churches.
Okay. Now, let's look at the modern day terrorist threat. Where are they hiding? In mosques, maybe?
Mosques, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, folks, you wake up. Hello, this is not. I'm not an expert. You are the experts, okay? But I don't think you have to be terribly brilliant to connect those dots, because one, you've got some organization, but two, you've got to make a cultural impact, okay? Passing laws and enforcing laws has limits. All right, well, let's move on to something happier. Every now and then you find a church leader or a pastor that says, we need this. What happens then? Kind of take us through, roll it out, and give us an account.
Sure. So we feel so strongly about this and understanding the threat that we are willing to speak to any church in America. We don't charge our normal speaking fee or training fee to churches. That's how strongly we feel about the strategy of Pastor Speaking Truthfully. So if there is a church out there that wants to have us come and deliver the message so that they can understand the threat, all they need to do is contact us on our website at understandingthethreat.com, ask us about the program. If they are willing to pay our travel expenses and lodging, then we'll come out and we'll speak to their congregation. And if they're willing to do a love offering, that's great. But the bottom line is we need to get this message out. I mean, just what we saw with Manchester tonight, this is not going away. We cannot wish this threat away. And there are sheriffs that are willing and able to dismantle the jihadi network, but they need their community to back them up, and that's where pastors are so key in this war right now.
So, is this a new initiative or is this something that has been ongoing? Can you share with us some experiences you've had with pastors?
Oh, look, once people hear this message, now this is where it's uniform across the board. Once people hear the message, whether it's law enforcement training or whether it's a congregation at a church, once people hear the truth, it resonates. They know it's truthful. And then immediately within a few hours, the question isn't, is this true? The question is, because we lay it all out with facts and evidence, whether it's church congregations or law enforcement. But the question is always, how can we help? How can we get involved? And we're seeing that across the country as we travel to different church groups and congregations. People know that there's a problem. They may not be able to articulate the problem doctrinally within Islam or jihad or Sharia, but they know at a gut level that there's something wrong. And once we lay it out for them, just like law enforcement, when citizens hear this, it's crystal clear. And the only question they have at the end is, how can we help?
Okay, so how well, you are a proclaiming, professing Christian, that is correct, I presume. I think we've spoken earlier. How do you work with people in the Jewish faith? How do you work with people, of different faiths? Has that ever been a problem?
We're willing to work with any group that loves America. I mean, primarily we have a church program and we have a program for synagogues. But any group out there, whether it's Tea Party groups or any civic group, veterans groups, Oath Keepers, anybody that's willing to hear the message and wants to hear the message and loves this country and wants to defend liberty, then we're willing to come out and speak to them. But primarily, as far as our strategy, we feel strongly that we're going to win or lose this war at the state and local level, state by state, county by county. So our main strategy is sheriffs and pastors. So that's why we focus in on the church groups, because pastors are just key to our overall strategy. It's
a good tandem. And Chris, John, folks, just let me say, you what you're seeing here are the tip of the spear, the warriors on the front line of a new battlefront that many have not considered until now. And again, the website is understandingthethreat.com. And our guest today and tonight is John Guandolo. That is the man on the right. He is the president. And Chris Galbitz on the left. John, you've been very patient. You're the president. I guess we should at least give you the last word.
Well, I think Chris did a great job of laying out that our strategy and why it's important. There is a new group, the Faith Leaders of America, and that E.W. Jackson and General Jerry Boykin have helped stand up, and a number of other people that we know and work with. So I would certainly encourage pastors to get involved there. The Black Robe Regiment both at the state and national level, is another great organization. But I would just say this, it takes courage. If a pastor is saying, I'm not doing X because of a 501c3 status, then he ought to be tossed out of the church, because that is just cowardly, that you're not going to speak the truth because you're afraid of your nonprofit status. There are ways to do this that are savvy, and people have just got to be boldly speaking the truth. And since you brought up the civil rights movement, I'll just end it on this because I think it's important, and because I know a large part of your audience are going to be Christians. You know, when Martin Luther King wrote Strength to Love, and he chastised, both from the letters from Birmingham jail and in that book, Christian pastors for being soft-hearted but also soft-minded. And he reminded pastors that Jesus said you should be gentle as doves, but they always forget the other part, to be wise as serpents. And we have a nation to defend. We have a kingdom to bring to this earth, and we ought to be bold in doing it and stop worrying about things that have nothing to do with either one of those. And I appreciate your giving us the ability to share this with folks. We encourage people to go to the website, certainly sign up for the newsletter, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, UTT_USA. We have a YouTube channel, Understanding the Threat, and really dig into this and get involved, because we need you now more than ever.
John, well put. Gentlemen, thank you so much for giving so freely of your time. Thank you for the work that you are doing, and keep doing that good job, and hopefully we'll get to hear from you again.
Thank you, Mark.